What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Payne. Welcome back to another Honkai Star Rail video. Alright guys, we're going to be talking about team building and making some balanced and OP teams and how to do that the proper way. Alright guys, so I've been playing here. I'm almost Trailblazer 30 now, and with my complete free-to-play account, I've been able to build some pretty badass teams, and this one here, for example, is one not to be trifled with. Alright, so I'm going to give you the premise on how to do this properly and what you want to balance and how you want to balance it, alright? So the first thing I want to note is the team is going to be made up of various elements, alright? That's the one thing you want to remember, is you want to bring the proper elements to the proper fights, of course, okay? So in my team, for example, I've got fire, physical, wind, and ice. Now, that is important because when you fight any opponent in this game, elemental breaks and elemental damage is going to be the key component of getting through most of the content, alright? Now, the other thing you want to focus on is you want to make sure you have a good balance between support and DPS. Now, you don't necessarily need a tank right away. That's something that's going to happen later on into the game, and even then you don't necessarily need a tank if you have the proper setup going with DPS. So in my case, let's take a look at my team here, okay? I'm going to show you guys how I balanced it out and why I set it up the way I did. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at everyone here. So my single target DPS and my freeze CC, my crowd control unit, is going to be Yangqing. He is probably one of the best single target DPS in the game next to Sela. If you have him, you don't necessarily need her. She's still an amazing unit, still better than him, of course, because she has the extra turns after she kills opponents, but this guy is not to be trifled with. So always bring a single target burst DPS into the fight, as well as someone who can crowd control. So if you don't have him, Sela's great. Sample's another really good example of a single target DPS. Dan Hong, and then Mark 7, of course, is your AoE crowd control unit. So having a crowd control and a single target DPS rolled into one is probably your best benefit. He would be, in my opinion, the best one next to Sela. Alright, next up I have my AoE unit. You always want to bring AoE units to a fight, especially when there is multiple enemies. In this case, you see I'm fighting 3 of them. And also anyone who can do follow-up attacks. So Himiko has a great way to follow up after 3 back-to-back attacks. She does an AoE to all opponents, and obviously brings fire damage and brings the dot of burn. So dots are very important in this game because they add additional damage to the opponents while they break, while they're just normal fights. Dots can stack up real fast and add extra damage for you. So bringing an AoE to a fight, especially a multi-unit fight, is going to be critical. Now, if there wasn't a multi-unit fight and this was a boss, this is where a tank would be a nice replacement, or another burst DPS. Ideally a tank though, so you guys can take some damage and soak it up and protect your DPS from dying. But AoE in this case is going to be an important one especially, okay? Now a support. In this case I brought Natasha. You can bring in Mark 7 with her shields, or you can bring in Natasha as a healer. I prefer the healer personally, and she's physical as well, which I'm lacking. I already have Ice and Yanqing. So Natasha does a hot, which is a healing over time, a single target DPS, single target heal, and as well as a ultimate AoE heal. So an incredibly important unit in the game to keep you refreshed, and especially through long fights, I think she works out better than someone like Mark 7, because the healing, in my opinion, is more important than the actual shields themselves, alright? And also the amount is bigger too, in terms of how much she heals. And then lastly I have Bronya here, who obviously is the best support in the game. She gives attack, crit damage up, and she gives damage up, and as well as advance 100%, giving your unit an extra turn, and she's wind damage, so not the greatest damage in the game, but in terms of support, there's no one better than her, except Ting Yun probably, who's very, very close, okay? So let's go ahead and do this fight and show you guys how this works out. Okay, so here's my single target DPS, right? As you can see here, I have this opponent here has done basic damage punishment, so I can't use basic attack, so we're gonna go ahead and do this real quick, kill this off. You can see that single target burst. Now use support to do it on him again. And you can see here I have enough technique points. I'm going to save this for the boss specifically. We're going to go ahead and do this now. See, now there's a follow-up attack by Himiko because I did 3 attacks back to back. We're going to go ahead and do this. Now, even though she's not a elemental weakness to ice, I'm going to go ahead and still do this because he does crit boost and he does fairly good damage right there. You can see that, and the follow-up right there freezes. That's what makes him so powerful, right? Not only does he boost his own crit, he has high crit already as it is, high damage, but he has a follow-up freeze attack, which does that to the opponent. And even though, again, they're not ice elemental weakness, still quite a bit of damage, and as well a frozen, which you can't complain about, right? We're gonna go ahead and do basic attack here, build some more technique points.
Time for sword play.
Go ahead and do this again. See how much damage that pulls off? That's crazy, right? So go ahead and do this again.
Lend me your strength.
And you want him to essentially do as much damage as he possibly can, even with the wrong element, right?
Time for an overhaul.
So we do blast here. Now, if she plans to attack, which she will, right there, skill punishment, and this AoE attack, that's not a problem. I can go ahead and heal for Natasha. Simply back almost to full there, and then go ahead and finish this off with a clean fight. And I got the Chad Norris title. So
This enemy is completely
you guys can set up various teams in this manner.
Unlike those
The formula
random
is the
low-level
same.
fragmented
It doesn't really
creations.
change much. All you need to do is set up the proper format. So that is a single target burst DPS. And I gave you a couple examples, right? Dan Hong, you can do Sampo, who's actually a dot user, but still considered a single target DPS with his dots. You can do, for the 5 stars, you can do Seeley, obviously, and you can do Yan Qing. For DPS, AoE, Himiko, you can use Serval. There's quite a bit, right? So there's a few other options. Hook is also a single target DPS you can use if you don't have like a burst one. Hook is incredible for that. For AoE, there's plenty of options to go with as well too. And then for support, there's Ting Yun, there's Bronya, there's March 7 obviously, and AoE also for March 7. You can add her into that fold as well, and a counter attack. And there's also counter teams, right? If you have like Clara, March 7, there's a few other counter units you can use too. So setting up the proper formula by having yourself 2 DPS, 2 support, or 1 DPS, 1 tank, and 2 support is going to probably bring you the most success in this game. The game itself is not difficult in terms of the story mode, but when you start doing Forgotten Halls, if you start doing yourself some of the Calyx and move up in terms of using Trailblazer points, the difficulty does get up there. So you do need to have, number 1, the proper element use, number 2, the proper team setup, and number 3, the right units for the right fights. All right? Hope this video helped out. If you're having trouble team building, let me know in the comment section. I can definitely give you more of a hand. Again, this is a complete free-to-play account. I've got a great thing going on here with free-to-play. Have not needed to use any money whatsoever to make this a viable experience, and it's been an absolute blast. So again, this is Payne. Hope you enjoyed the Honkai Star Rail video. I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Take care.